DreamWorks Animation, Jeffrey Katzenberg. Et puis aussi, on a des acteurs français dans le rôle du Dr Cafard, Stéphane Fraisse. Dans le rôle de Suzanne, en voix française, Louise Bourgoin. Et enfin, dans le rôle de Derek, Julien Doré. Bonjour à tous, hello everyone, thank you for being with us. If you would like translation into English for any of the French questions, you've got your headsets here. Ok, qui voudrait commencer? Alors juste ici, allez-y.
Bonjour, c'est une question pour le réalisateur. Je voudrais savoir, lorsqu'il a envisagé de faire ce film avec ses scénaristes, qu'est-ce qui a fait choisir de faire des monstres les bons et des aliens les mauvais? Est-ce qu'on aurait pu imaginer l'inverse?
This is a question for you, Conrad. When you were putting together the story for this movie, why did you decide to make the monsters the good guys and the aliens the bad guys when it could have been the other way around?
Well, thank you. When we first started out, we figured the monsters have always been the bad guys. That's why we took these monsters from the 1950s B movies, because we like the idea that they've been stuck in prison for the last 50 years. And it wasn't until we had a bigger threat than the monsters used to be that we needed to rely upon the very creatures that we reviled and threw into prison in order to get us out of this alien mess. So I think it was kind of like a throwback to the Dirty Dozen, and I think that's why we decided to make the monsters the good guys in this.
D'autres questions? Alors, voilà, juste ici, monsieur Vernon.
Oui, justement, je voulais parler des monstres et des aliens. Donc, cette référence au cinéma des années 50, est-ce que vous avez revu tous les films dont sont sortis ces monstres? Et je voudrais demander à tous les acteurs quel lien ils ont avec ce cinéma-là. Est-ce que c'est le cinéma de leur enfance ou est-ce que c'est un cinéma qui leur est nouveau?
Okay, so first a question for Conrad and Lisa and Jeffrey. Did you watch all of the old B movies when you were putting together this movie? Tell us a bit about your preparation.
Well, we started out by getting about 150 old B movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that was open to the entire crew, from the art department to the story department to the effects department. And whenever they wanted, they could go and check out these movies and start to look at them. And so we had ideas coming in from all angles as far as what we wanted to put in based on the homage that we wanted to make to those old movies.
Jeffrey, anything to add?
I think you got it.
There was a second question for the actors, pour tous les acteurs français également comme anglais. How do you all feel about these B movies? Do you have any memories from your youth or watching them on television? Was there one in particular that affected you? Est-ce qu'il y avait un de ces films, des séries B, qui vous a beaucoup touché quand vous étiez plus jeune ou que vous avez regardé en préparation pour ce film? Qui voudrait commencer? Kiefer, maybe? Would you like to start?
For me, one of the things I loved about the genre was just that they had melded a group of genres together. In those horror films, obviously their intent was to scare you, but there was a great sense of comedy, and there was always generally a dramatic through line as well. And I love the fact that those filmmakers at that time and the storytellers were trying to actually cross genres together, and that's what I actually believe makes those films special.
Et pour les Français, je sais pas, Stéphane, est-ce qu'il y avait un film qui vous a marqué un peu, que vous avez regardé en préparation? Is there a movie that you liked in particular?
Non, honnêtement non, mais je rebondis sur ce que Kiefer. Effectivement, je découvre le film aujourd'hui et ce qui m'impressionne, et ce que je trouve assez original, c'est le mélange des genres. Parce qu'on rit et en même temps, il y a une lecture, j'étais avec mes enfants dans la salle, il y a une lecture à plusieurs niveaux de compréhension du film, qui fait qu'on peut rire quand on est petit, on peut rire quand on est grand, et on y voit à chaque niveau une satire vraiment très pertinente. Donc je ne crois pas qu'on soit obligé de voir un film pour l'apprécier, même pour travailler dessus.
Just before we move on, Stefan was just mentioning his children. He just saw the movie with his kids. Kiefer, Reese, you guys both have kids. What did they think about the movie? Did they see it?
Tell my favorite story.
Reese, je pose la question à Reese si ses enfants ont vu le film.
Yes, I took my children. My daughter is 9 and my son is 5 to see the film a few weeks ago at DreamWorks. and they love this film. This is the favorite film I've ever done. They don't care about Walk the Line or Legally Blonde. This is the favorite film. And I said to my daughters, we were driving home, and my son, I said, what do you think is the message of this film? And my daughter said, I think it means don't ever let someone underestimate you. And I said, yes, that's true, Ava. You know, and I, as it's Deacon, who's 5, I said, what do you think the film is about? And he said, I think it's when octopus aliens invade your planet, you have to kill them. And so I think they both really understood the film.
Typical man. Est-ce qu'il y a une autre question ici? Ah, voilà, juste ici, monsieur.
J'ai une question pour Conrad et Jeffrey. Qu'est-ce que ça a changé pour vous de tourner en 3D? Comment se passe le procédé concrètement et est-ce que ça va être généralisé à tous les films DreamWorks?
So a question for Conrad and Jeffrey, but you can speak to this as well, Lisa, about the 3D. Tell us about the process of putting all of that together, and how do you see the future? Is this something, maybe Jeffrey for you, that will be seen now in all DreamWorks animation films from here on out?
Would you guys start?
Yeah, Conrad, Lisa.
When we first started the 3D process, it was definitely a period of trial and error as we sort of learned how to tell our story with this new tool. The people at DreamWorks, the technology group, was really terrific in sort of helping us take the story that we wanted to tell and just make it a more immersive experience. We felt like we didn't have to use gimmicks, didn't have to throw things out of the screen. We were only going to do it if it enhanced what we were already intending to do.
I think that, you know, when we set out 3 years ago to use these amazing new tools and technology to, you know, really reinvent what 3D means, to bring it to the 21st century. You know, a lot of that was sort of pioneering. We had lots of optimism and weren't sure what we would end up with. And now seeing the results of it in this first movie that uses these new tools, we couldn't be more excited about it. And we think it actually can redefine what it means to see a movie in a movie theater. And so from here forward, all of our films will be authored in and offered to moviegoers in 3D.
Alors, qui a le microphone? Voilà, juste ici.
Hey, it's a question for Kiefer and Louise. I think you were working together in '96 for the movie Freeway. How was it to work together?
Et en français? Sorry, let me just jump in first. Pour les Français, pour ceux qui n'ont pas compris, la question c'était sur Freeway, le film que Kiefer et Louise a fait ensemble il y a longtemps. C'était comment de se retrouver?
You know, when I'm asked why I chose to do the film, there are a few reasons. I don't believe that anyone is making better animated movies than Mr. Katzenberg, and I had not worked with Reese for almost 12 years. 12 years. And I remember Reese's voice really distinctly. And she did a...
Was it because it was really annoying?
No, not at all.
I was 18,
not at
I
all.
was so excited to work with you. I was like so annoying. I was like, hey, keep...
No, we had a fantastic time working on Freeway, but her voice is in a much higher register than mine, and I thought that would be an interesting balance. And yeah, this was a long way around to find out how to spend more time with her. So.
I was so excited when I got the chance to work with him on Freeway because we're such a big heartthrob and a big star. And I grew up watching him in Lost Boys and Youngins. No, that's not true. Now it's fun because now I get to tour around and see all over the world people singing. So excited about him being Jack Bauer, and it's just great. It's a reunion of sorts.
Yes.
It's very nice. And I got to kick his butt in that movie. I'm trying to kick your butt.
Kind of kick my butt in this movie too.
He gets to boss me around in this movie.
Et puisqu'on parle des voix, une question pour les acteurs français. Vous vous êtes beaucoup inspiré de jeux des acteurs américains pour faire vos rôles. I'm asking the French actors if they took inspiration from what you guys did when they were doing their version of the role. Louise?
La voix des acteurs américains coïncide avec les mouvements de bouche des personnages d'animation, donc on ne pouvait pas vraiment prendre un total contre-pied ou choisir de faire quelque chose de complètement différent. Et en plus, oui, on nous a fait écouter la bande originale à chaque fois, pour chaque phrase, avant de se jeter nous-mêmes. Et moi, on m'a choisi parce que ma voix ressemble à celle de Reese. Et je suis désolée, Reese, mais on me dit souvent que j'ai une voix insupportable. Je pense que la vôtre est plus douce, mais en tout cas la mienne est particulièrement. Quand je parle fort, ça va. C'est insupportable. Par contre, Julien a une voix ultra grave, un peu
comme Barry White.
Voilà, exactement. Donc le contraste était intéressant, je pense.
C'était comment pour vous, Julien? C'est que votre deuxième fois en tant qu'acteur, c'était comment cette expérience? How was it for you, Julien?
Ouais, c'est un peu différent. Enfin, c'est simplement la voix, mais justement, je trouve qu'il y avait quelque chose qui était extrêmement intéressant dans les intentions de jeu qui finalement pouvaient paraître un peu surjouées. Voilà, quand on se basait sur les voix américaines, essayer de pousser le personnage dans l'excès de voix. Et au fond, moi, je pense que ça m'a assez aidé à trouver des attitudes, des intentions comme ça, même si c'est qu'un personnage animé. Ça, c'était extrêmement intéressant.
Ok, qui vous a une question? Voilà, juste ici.
Je voudrais juste te dire une chose comme ça.
Oui, allez-y, c'est parti.
J'ai vu le film ce matin avec mes enfants, donc, et à un moment dans le film, il y a un journaliste américain qui dit décidément, les aliens survolent toujours le ciel américain. Et à la fin du film, mon fils m'a dit, mais oui, c'est vrai, pourquoi les aliens survolent seulement le ciel américain? Et là, j'ai pas pu répondre. Si vous avez une réponse à me donner avant ce soir, ça
Did you guys get that? Stephen wants to know why the aliens always only attack the United States.
We deserve it.
Exactly. On the map.
We wrote it. Godzilla attacked Japan because it was written by a Japanese writer, and this was written by Americans, and they attacked America.
The power of the pen. Allez-y.
Oui, concernant les effets relief, il y a surtout des effets de profondeur et peu d'effets enfin pas suffisamment d'effets de jaillissement. Donc je voulais savoir si vous étiez au maximum de cette exploitation-là, est-ce que vous étiez à la limite du confort pour le spectateur ou c'était volontaire? Pourquoi est-ce qu'il n'y en a pas plus?
Vous voulez dire qu'il y a assez dans l'image, il n'y a pas assez qui rentre dans la salle?
Voilà,
ok, très bien. This is a question about the 3D. She's saying she felt watching the movie that we got the feeling of depth, but we didn't quite get this feeling of like, things jumping out at us. Was that a choice? Is that technology not perfected yet? What was behind that decision?
When we first started looking at the 3D aspect of this movie, we were very cognizant of what gave it a negative connotation in the past, and that was the fact that for no reason whatsoever people were doing this constantly, and it kind of throws you out of the story when there is no reason behind it. So what we did was we treaded very lightly into the 3D forest and figured out stylistically how we wanted to approach it, and once we figured that out, we started watching the movie in 3D, and we found that in a lot of the emotional moments in the film, it was better to kind of push back, and so that the audience was kind of leaning forward and being drawn in. And then only when there was a reason to get an emotional response out of the audience did we have someone do that. There was for example, there was one scene where Gingerbread is being abducted by the aliens, and as she's being pulled up, her hand shoots out like that, and it comes right out of the audience, and it gets an emotional response because you want to grab out and reach for her hand. But when someone is just talking and saying, let's go over there, like that, it kind of throws you out of the story. And so we only poke stuff out when it was absolutely necessary.
So I would say that the whole concept of 3D today versus what it was in the past is completely different. In the past it was a gimmick. It was more for a theme park attraction or to try and make a not particularly good movie seem better than it was. Today, because of the extraordinary power of these new tools to create 3D and also to deliver it in the movie theater, it actually is meant to do 180 degrees the opposite of what they used to do. And what I mean by that is today it's a chance for the storytellers to bring the audience into and immerse them in the story. And by doing that, it amplifies the feelings and the emotions and the enhancement of what they're trying to have an audience feel. They can actually participate in this world that they've created, I think, in a more immersive way. And so this is a new age. It's the beginning of a new era. And I think you'll see many different filmmakers are going to find interesting ways to use it. But I think it is a tool for storytelling, and it won't make a bad story good.
D'autres questions?
Oui, s'il vous plaît. Bonjour, c'est une question pour Kiefer. On a l'habitude de vous voir dans 24 heures où c'est un rôle très physique avec des scènes d'action, des explosions partout. Qu'est-ce que vous avez tiré dans ce film-là pour faire la voix? Donc en fait c'est un truc vachement moins physique, quoi. C'est plus tranquille, disons, par rapport à 24 heures.
Okay. Kiefer, a question for you. In 24, such a physical role, you're always running around and jumping. And what drew you to this movie where it seems to him less physical, or was it less physical?
Completely less, unphysical. It was a great counterbalance for me. I was making Monsters vs. Aliens at the same time as we were shooting 24. And 24 is a hard schedule, and it's very serious, and it has its demands, and there was nothing better than 5 hours a week to be able to go and play this character. And one of the great attractions to doing an animated film is that you are not responsible for the physicality of the character. That is a great relationship that you develop between your voice and the animators and the creators of the movie. So it was a chance to do things with your voice that your body might not be able to keep up to. As Julien was pointing out earlier, everything is excessive, it's over the top. And as an actor, that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. It actually reminded me, when we started, of why I started acting in the first place. It became that much fun. There were times, and they will tell you, that I was sitting in that studio, in my chair by myself, and I felt like I was 5. And so that was a great counterbalance for me to shooting 24.
How did you find your voice? Did you try a bunch of different ones until you hit on the right one? Did you inspire yourself from old cartoon characters?
It was a conversation that we had, and there was a responsibility that the character would have to the military background, and for that voice we had talked about, and I loved the character of the sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, and then to counterbalance that and kind of give some humor, there is a cartoon character in the United States who is very famous called Yosemite Sam, and he began every Bugs Bunny cartoon with a very famous line. It's a little loud, but bring on the fearless free I hate rabbits, and he talked like that, he's a miserable little man. And he had a southern accent that would kind of be fun to balance with Lisa's delicate southern draw. And so they started to laugh when we were messing around with that idea of the voice, and so we kind of went in that direction.
Okay. Et maintenant le microphone.
Oui, bonjour. J'ai 2 questions. La première est pour M. Katzenberg. Disney a annoncé que plusieurs de ses films phares animés allaient être retravaillés pour la 3D. Je voudrais savoir s'il compte faire la même chose pour ceux de DreamWorks. Et la deuxième question est pour le réalisateur. J'aurais voulu qu'il nous parle de tous les clins d'œil, Easter eggs et autres private jokes qui parsèment le film.
So, first question for you, Jeffrey. Apparently Disney is planning on releasing a lot of its old movies in 3D. Would you do the same with the DreamWorks catalog?
We haven't seen a technology yet that allows us to post-produce a movie made in 2D into 3D that sort of looks at a quality that we're comfortable with. And that's not to say that Disney hasn't created that technology, because they may have. But we've been investing so much time and resources and money into having the best tools for the new movies. and we have not actually gone back to look at, could we take the original Shrek and post-produce it into 3D. The work that has been done to date of converting 2D to 3D, I have not cared for. It reminds me of taking a black and white movie and colorizing it. It just doesn't look right. So I don't know that they won't. There aren't tools to do it. We haven't seen them yet.
All right, and the second question was for Lisa and Conrad. There's loads of private jokes in the movie. Tell us a bit about those and how you came up with those ideas and seen them in.
Okay. Like I was saying earlier, we those and especially the story team and the writers, they would go and watch those over and over and over again. And there was certain themes that started popping up constantly in all these old horror films, and it was the truck zoom as the lady screamed, and then there was the monster that would walk like this, and no matter how fast someone ran, this monster was always 10 feet behind them. There was just all sorts of gags like that we would pull out of these old films. There was also a lot of inspiration we got from old films and filmmakers like Stanley Kubrick and Star Wars, and things that inspired us when we were kids. And so even the art department was coming up with really funny gags for us. All the little mechanisms that you see in the war room or in the monster prison were come up with by the art department. So we were getting ideas from everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very collaborative medium. We have storyboard artists and animators and the art department, and everybody brings their own sensibilities and humor to it, and we just try and hone it and hope it amuses everybody.
Conrad, you've also worked as a voiceover artist. You've done, among other things, Gingerbread Man in the Shrek movies. Do you have a cameo in this movie?
I do. I play Reese's mother-in-law, Mama Deedle.
With the short,
Can you do the voice for us?
short thumb.
Yeah, the one with the thumb. She was like,
Yeah, tell me that one.
How romantic. The weatherman and the weatherman's wife. One thumb shorter than the other. Runs in the face.
I have a part too.
Oh, go ahead, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, see, do you want one?
Will Conrad or Lisa will share with you what I got to do in the movie.
Lisa?
Jeffrey is the little DreamWorks boy on the moon who was abducted by the aliens.
Jeffrey, can you do the voice?
I don't know, would I just say, not again?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it was,
You go, oh no, not again!
oh no, not again. I don't have my voice today, so can't possibly act it.
Ok, qui a une autre question? Voilà, ici.
Toujours chez DreamWorks, l'importance de la bande sonore et musicale est primordiale. Je pense en particulier au morceau des 52 Planet Claire. À quel moment de la production le choix des musiques se fait-elle, et est-ce que certains d'entre vous ont des idées dès le départ du projet?
Okay, this is a question about the soundtracks too. Always seem to be incredibly important. He's talking in particular about the B-52 song Planet Claire. When do you decide to use the music? Is it there right from the beginning? What's the process of that? And tell us about the ideas behind the music.
a long time ago, the first two scenes that were kind of put forward in the movie were the president walking up to meet the alien and the war room. And those were the first two scenes that we had done. And I just had in my head Planet Claire, because I absolutely love that song. And I like the Peter Gunn kind of riff to it, and just the beat behind it. And it also, for some reason, B-52's always embodied the 80s version of the old 50s, you know, the beehives and everything like that. So it kind of went with the idea of the movie. So and it had that weird theremin quality. There was just so many things about that song I really liked. So we put that in over that for the very beginning, and it just seemed to fit all the way through. So we had it kind of scored to a certain extent, you know, to fit the dramatic movie.
I'm curious to know a bit about the casting of the French voices. How involved is the US team in the casting of these different voices around the world? Une question sur le choix des voix françaises. Est-ce que l'équipe américaine est très impliquée dans le choix de ces voix, Jeffrey?
Wow.
Really?
I listened to them, and the thing that I have always found remarkable about we adapt our movies, and I say adapt because I actually think these actors do so much more than they give themselves credit for. I don't think you just say the words here. I think there's a real demand in the acting and the nuances and the characters. We actually adapt our movie into 47 languages, and for the key cast in each of those languages, there's in each country a director, producers who make suggestions to us, and so for each of you, they actually you would come in and done some lines, and the thing that's wonderful about it is that even if I don't understand the actual words in the language has melody to it. And there's a melody to each of their voices, and they were very beautiful matches for the melodies of the original actors.
Alors, une autre question, voilà, juste ici.
J'imagine que le casting de monstres a dû être compliqué. Je voulais savoir s'il y avait des monstres qui le regrettent de ne pas avoir pu mettre dans le film. Et dans le deuxième temps, j'aurais voulu que chacun de nos invités nous donne son monstre préféré de nanar, de B-movie.
So the first question is about the monsters. It must have been hard to make the final cut of which ones were among those final 5. Do you regret any monsters that didn't make the cut? And the second question for each of you to think about now, who, if you could be a monster from a series, a B movie, who would you be? Une question pour les Françaises plus tard, si vous pouviez être le monstre d'une film de série B, ça serait lequel? So first up.
Well, we've picked the monsters based on stereotypes that we constantly see in those old horror movies. There's the mad scientist, there's the scary oozy thing that will, suck fluids out of your body. There's the gigantic that destroys buildings. There's a lot of different, versions of these characters, and everyone has seen a movie, a horror movie with one of these, types in it. So we made sure to make the characters reflect that. That's how we picked, our particular characters and made up our own versions of them.
And was there one that you wished you could have fit in but you didn't have a chance to? Est-ce qu'il y avait un qui était obligé de tomber à l'eau?
For some reason, we compiled a bunch of old 1950s movie monster posters, and Wasp Woman was always something that stuck out in my head. It was the head of a woman and the body of a wasp, and she had this little guy in her hand, she was stinging him. And for some reason, that image always was like, that's a cool monster.
Reese, if you could be a monster, which one would you pick?
Oh, goodness. I don't know, it might be fun to be King Kong for a day.
Why?
Oh, you could walk around the world. You just walk around the world, save a lot of money in plane fare.
And Kiefer, how about you?
I haven't really thought about being a specific character, but I guess just because I really appreciate the film, I would be a killer tomato.
Ok. You and George Clooney. Julien, pour vous, est-ce qu'il y a un monstre que vous aimeriez bien être aussi?
Edith Piaf.
Yeah. Okay, a monster of song, as we say here in France. Louise, et pour vous?
Je vois pas pour l'instant, mais en tout cas, j'ai adoré Bob. Évidemment, il est dans le film, mais je trouve qu'il est absolument génial et je suis triste qu'on ne l'ait pas apporté. Je pensais qu'on m'apporterait ça dans une petite boîte et qu'on pourrait faire des bruits avec en faisant son doigt. Mais je ne crois pas que le produit dérivé ce moment-là en France, malheureusement.
Et Stéphane?
Mais moi, je voudrais dire que l'insecte que je déteste le plus au monde, c'est le cafard. Et en fait, ce film m'a réconcilié avec les cafards.
Tant mieux.
Ça, donc vous m'avez aidé. Merci.
Qui a le microphone maintenant? Des questions ici devant? Et voilà, la dame ici.
Alors, une question pour les deux actrices. Est-ce que c'est jubilatoire de jouer une super-héros? C'est comme la femme qui est le héros de ce film. Et pour Louise, savoir si c'était jubilatoire aussi de savoir que Julien serait Mister Météo.
Okay. So, first question for both Reese and Louise. How does it feel to be a superhero? Because for once in a movie, the woman is a hero.
I think it's an extraordinary opportunity. First of all, that the DreamWorks chose to make a film that has a female superhero at the center of it is fantastic. I was with my children one day about a month ago when I was saying we were walking, and I said, to my son, I said, what's your favorite superhero? And he could list about 25 men that were his favorite superheroes. It was hard for him to choose just one. And I said to my daughter, who's your favorite superhero? And she said, well, I don't know any girl superheroes. So when they saw this film, they were so excited that there was this woman who was strong and powerful, and not only does she save herself in the movie, but she saves the world. I think it's an extraordinary new role model for young women. Louise?
Ouais, exactement. J'ai été frappée par ça parce que quand j'ai fait les essais, en fait, on m'avait pas parlé de l'histoire et j'étais face à une héroïne, effectivement, qui avait 1000 fois plus de force que n'importe quel homme, et face à des personnages masculins qui étaient assez lâches et faibles, en fait. Il n'y a pas que celui du Derek, il y a aussi le président, etc. Donc c'était assez drôle. Et pour répondre à votre question, madame, en ce qui concerne les présentateurs météo, quoi qu'il arrive, c'est jubilatoire. Voilà. Que ce soit Julien ou un autre.
Bon, let's go.
Voilà. C'est jubilatoire. J'avoue que je regarde souvent en rediffusion. C'est très sexy, quoi.
Ok, voilà, question ici.
Oui, je voudrais savoir si dans le film, le voyage de noces a lieu à Paris. Est-ce que c'est uniquement dans la version française ou est-ce qu'ils vont à Rome dans la version italienne, à Londres dans la version anglaise, etc.
Okay, in the French version, they're planning on going on their honeymoon to Paris. In other countries around the world, for example, in the Italian version, do they go to Rome, or is it always Paris, and why Paris?
It's always Paris, because it's Paris. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Paris?
Didn't one day we flirted with Barcelona? Didn't we do that way?
Yeah, because you like to say it.
I just like to say Barcelona.
No, the intent was always Paris, and because Paris is such a Fresno is so very much not Paris.
Recent Kiefer, I'm sure you've been here before. Do you have a favorite memory of Paris? Un souvenir préféré de Paris?
Oh, so many. The food, so many things to eat. And taking my children to the fair at the Freeway Gardens, that's so nice. They love that.
La Louise. My favorite restaurant in the world.
À la nuit? Qui a le micro ici?
Justement, pour continuer sur Paris, dans le film, Suzanne dit que son rêve de jeune mariée, c'est d'aller à Paris et pour déguster une baguette et du fromage. Alors comme nous avons une gastronomie assez réputée, on peut offrir mieux que ça. Donc je voulais savoir quel plat rêvent de déguster nos amis américains.
So apparently Susan makes a comment in the film saying going to Paris to be able to eat baguette and cheese, but she's saying French gastronomy is so much more than that. If you could, what's your favorite thing that you would eat in France? Favorite dish?
My son's favorite dish is escargot. So I think the joke about escargot is really funny.
Okay, une autre question? Voilà, juste ici.
On comprend bien ce que la 3D peut amener en termes de lutte contre le piratage et pour amener les ça. Ce que je voulais savoir, c'est comment vous imaginez le transfert en DVD.
Okay, so he's saying in regards to 3D, he understands how that can help in the fight against piracy, but how do you envisage putting this film out on DVD?
It'll be in its standard form in DVD. The home is not yet ready for 3D, and you know the way we have approached this is that our ambition in making the film was Monsters vs. Aliens in its standard 2D presentation should be as good as Madagascar or Kung Fu Panda, and then this technology offers us an opportunity in movie theaters to see it in an exceptional way. And so we are no less proud of the movie and its standard presentation than we are any of the films that we've made, and think it works in that regard.
Okay, and I think there's another question right here. Une autre question juste là. Non, derrière, c'est derrière. Voilà, super. Merci.
Merci. Tout à l'heure, vous avez dit que vous aviez donc utilisé surtout les effets de jaillissement pour les émotions. Donc je voulais savoir si l'étape supplémentaire, ce sera de jouer sur les émotions en utilisant d'autres perceptions sensorielles comme le chaud, le froid, les effets de vent, les odeurs, etc. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose auquel vous songez au sein de DreamWorks ou est-ce que vous laissez ça au parc d'attractions ou autre parc à thème?
Okay, so she's going back to what we were saying earlier about 3D, about how you were using sort of that effect of the audience for very emotional moments. Would you ever consider for the next step maybe doing things like Smellovision they had in the past, or using wind or heat and cold? For that, for you, is that much more a theme park attraction, not the place for cinema?
Again, I think this is very different from that. You know, to me, there have been two great revolutions that have occurred in the past in cinema. The first is when they went from silent film to talk, to sound and music, and then in the 1920s. The next great revolution began in the 1930s when Technicolor was introduced to films. And in both of these instances, they really enhanced the ability of filmmakers and storytellers to engage us, the audience, in their stories and impact. It's been 7 years since the introduction of color, and this, to me, is the next great revolution. And we're at the very beginning of it, and I think with time, you know, the greatest human sense of all is our sight, and we see in 3D. That is what is most natural to us. So to offer that storytelling tool to filmmaking, I think is a great opportunity, and will create, as I say, I hope another great revolution for films. So I think those things me feel more like a gimmick.
Ok, alors une autre question qui est juste ici.
Considérant le creuset inépuisable idée des B-movies, est-ce qu'ils ont déjà envisagé un retour de nos amis monstres dans d'autres aventures?
Are you thinking already about the future, sequels for these friends, the monsters?
I'm waiting for this movie to come out. I'm wishing it well and seeing what happens.
But in an ideal world?
I do what Jeffrey tells me.
You know, for the filmmakers, they've spent 5 years working on this movie. And the notion of doing anything other than going home and resting or coming here to Paris and spending 2 months doing nothing, that's their greatest dream today. But the movie was created, and the story was created with an opportunity to continue if the audiences respond to it. There is a second chapter to this story.
And would the actors be on board? Les acteurs, ça vous dirait de refaire?
Oui. Le gratin dauphinois.
And recent Kiefer for you?
You want to say yes at the same time?
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Alors, est-ce qu'on a d'autres questions? Une dernière question, c'est bon? Ok. Et voilà, juste ici, monsieur.
Oui, j'aurais voulu savoir, c'est une question pour Jeffrey Katzenberg, à savoir si vous considérez qu'au jour d'aujourd'hui c'est le film le plus abouti au niveau technique. Parce qu'on parlait beaucoup de technique, effets 3D et tout ça. J'aurais voulu savoir si c'était vraiment le film le plus abouti de DreamWorks aujourd'hui.
Jeffrey, a question for you. Would you say this film has been DreamWorks' greatest technical success so far?
It's the one that has the greatest innovation from what has come before. And it's both the authoring of the movie in 3D, but even many elements within the movie raised the bar for us. In particular, the character of Bob, the Blob. It looks so simple and yet is an amazing, amazing achievement in terms of being able to realize the vision of the director. The technology, you know, technology is our friend, and you know, having the best technology allows an artist to dream anything and actually to be able to realize it on film. And Bob is a very, very technically difficult character to create.
Ouais. Encore une question, c'est bon? Super. Bon, merci beaucoup. Thank you so much for all of you for being here with us. Et merci à vous.